Be starting pretty soon. So sorry about this. Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning session. Today's gathering is part of an important initiative by the Let There Be Teachers Foundation, a movement built on a simple but powerful belief. Every child deserves a great teacher, and every teacher deserves a dignified life and profession. Let There Be Teachers, widely known as LTBT, exists to restore the dignity of the teaching profession and redefine the value of educators in national development. The work is anchored on three words: respect, reward, and recognition. Through advocacy, research, partnership, and flagship platforms like the Let There Be Teachers Conference, now the world's largest teacher-centered gathering, LTBT is building a global movement that celebrates teachers, strengthens their well-being, and drives systemic change across Africa and beyond. This session you're about to experience reflects that commitment, not just to celebrate teachers, but to equip, empower, and position them for the future. Let me be clear about this morning section. This is not a tax policy session. That conversation comes later this evening. This morning is about preparation, positioning, and smart financial thinking. Educators today earn differently. Many now have multiple income streams, local and foreign NEAs, consulting, facilitation, and data income. Yet, financial habits haven't always caught up with these realities. So this session is about helping teachers get ahead of 2026 calmly and responsibly without panic. It is my honor to introduce our speaker for this session. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Adewuyi Adetunji, Senior Partner at Adewuyi Adetunji & Co. Adewuyi Adetunji & Co. is a multidisciplinary professional services firm comprising chartered accountants, tax practitioners, and value-added management consultants. The firm serves organizations across the public and private sectors, spanning multiple industries in Nigeria and also support foreign entities. Beyond professional practice, Mr. Adewuyi Adetunji is deeply involved in capacity building, serving as a resource person at professional for delivering in-house business sessions and speaking on issues of economic importance, including tax appreciation and financial responsibility. We are honored to learn from someone who understands the numbers and understands people. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Adewuyi Adetunji. Before I drop the mic, I would also want you to know that it is important. It is not business as usual. You need a financial person in your business, in your, to understand how to manage your finances, especially with the new tax reform. So, Mr. Adewuyi and Co. Adewuyi Adetunji and Co. might be a plug you want to leverage. So join me as I welcome him. Please use different emoji to celebrate and welcome him this morning. Mr. Adewuyi, over to you, sir.
Good morning, Madam. How are you? My name is Yemi Adetunji, not Adewuyi Adetunji. My firm is Adewuyi Adetunji. So don't let me usurp my dad's name. My dad is Adewuyi Adetunji, and I'm using his name to practice. So I don't want any of you thinking, no problem. A lot of people make that error. Anyway, good morning, everybody else. She flattered me too much. I don't think I possess all that she claims that I have, but let's see how it goes. Thank you for your time, and I hope that by the time we're done, you would have benefited somewhat. I've framed what I'm going to speak about along the lines of what was shared with me, which was your issues were really to be prepared and maybe not panic, to understand your income streams as an educator, as far as I'm concerned, from a tax perspective. manage your local and foreign earnings. I mean, I wouldn't use the word wisely in the context of Nigerian tax, record keeping and financial habits that make tax compliance easier. That is very true because the tax man is determined to get off you what government's share of your earnings are. So for you to counter that, you've got to have very good records. And then financial mistakes educators should stop making and how to prepare without panic. I really like the last how to prepare without panic. I've been hearing so many things about the new tax regime. Even my wife asked me the other day, and she's a lawyer, that is it true that they're going to take money out of people's accounts when they see that there's money in your account? And I was surprised that that type of story had gained momentum. Let's understand that taxes are paid basically on income, profit, and or gains. Income, profit, and or gains. I will leave that to your session later in the day. One of the things you should realize is that it's only when you have a profit or you make an income or you sell something and have a gain from it that taxes can be imposed. If you don't have any of those, there are no taxes involved. So assuming on January 1, 2026, you had in your bank account 10 million naira, that doesn't count for tax. They cannot say because you have 10 million naira, you should come and pay tax on it. It's the income that you earn or the disposal of assets and the gain you make or the profits that you make in your business that can be taxed. But let's look at it because first I dread speaking to educators because all of us, wherever we are, cannot be where we are without educators. So I find out that you guys have discerning minds and one has to be careful when one engages with you. So I come to you this morning humble, knowing that I'm speaking to educators and hoping that I can meet the goal set for me. So we're talking about positioning your income for 2026, smart money decisions for educators, a tax perspective. As we all know, Nigeria is joining the League of Nations where tax is becoming a major issue. For people who are very old in Nigeria, tax was never a major issue. For people who lived in Lagos from 1999, 2000 to date, they know that tax has become a major issue. Even people that sell goods in market have been brought into the tax net and they are paying tax. So there's hardly any resident of Lagos that doesn't know that tax is a major issue in your life. It has, a lot of people have been able to evade taxes because they've disappeared in the cracks. But one of the challenges that we have and we don't know is that as you now have a BVN, as you have a NIN, and as you have a TIN, a tax identification number, it becomes a little bit more difficult for you to slip in between the cracks. Before, if you didn't go to a hospital to seek a public hospital to seek medical help, maybe nobody knew that you existed. If you didn't apply to government for land or for something from them, nobody knew that you existed. But with the advent of digitalization in our lives and our having BVNs to operate our bank account, and I am assuming that on this forum where we are, there isn't anybody without a bank account. It means, therefore, there isn't anybody who is not known. The only person who is not known is a person who doesn't have a bank account. Secondly, I am assuming that many of you will have passports. Because you have passports, you probably would have been compelled to get the NIN, the National Identification Number. With the NIN, it means that you are available in the digital ecosystem to be known, to be assessed, and to be approached. Now, with the twin NIN and BVN, it almost makes it impossible for a person not to exist. Therefore, if tax becomes a major issue, inadvertently, everybody listening to me is a player in the tax becoming a major issue syndrome. Americans say that there are two things certain in life. They say it's death and taxes. Nigeria is joining this. You know, when they say two things are certain, it's that you will die at some point, and that at some point you will have to pay taxes. That is becoming applicable in Nigeria. Many people before didn't pay tax and they could just about squeeze through their lives. But going by the slant of this present government, and which I think will continue in succeeding governments, that government has no business in business, and government's income should come from taxes raised on the individuals and the businesses that exist within the geography of Nigeria. The emphasis on taxation is going to become more and more pronounced. First, from the perspective of the individual, and from the perspective of the corporate. From January 1, 2026, everybody knows, or most people know, or we should all know, that a new tax regime will exist in Nigeria, making tax evasion increasingly difficult. There's a phrase that tax practitioners use, is that it's from a judge, I think, in the UK centuries ago. He made a ruling that says that tax evasion is illegal, tax avoidance is legal. I'll try and explain that because we're getting to that era. When you evade taxes, it's illegal, i.e., you hide your income, you lie about your income, you disposed of an asset, a big generator, a house, and you did not disclose the gain you made. That is what they call tax evasion. And it's illegal, and you can be fined, or in extreme cases, go to jail for that. Tax avoidance, however, is arranging your affairs such that the burden of tax is limited, and that is legal. And that is why you find out that for very rich people and for businesses, and increasingly for educators who are becoming very wealthy themselves, they need to put their affairs in order in such a manner that they can avoid the burden of tax. I use the word avoid, not the word evade. You guys are educators, so I'm sure after this class, you will go and check what the meaning of evade means and what the meaning of avoid means. Every individual should seek to avoid the burden of tax. That is illegal. Every individual should never evade tax. That is illegal and has implications. But I leave that to you guys to work out, evade and avoid. And I'm sure later in the day, when you have a tax proper class, you probably will ask the facilitator and he will explain. But like I'm saying, you can do everything possible to avoid the incidence of tax. You are not allowed to evade tax. The Nigerian Tax Act, which is the new act that comes into play from January 1, 2026, replaces the Income Tax Management Act, which itself had what we used to call, which we still call, sorry, the Personal Income Tax Act and the Companies Income Tax Act, PITA and CITA. All other tax legislations emerged from these. So Personal Income Tax Act was what governed the taxation of people like you and I, and Companies Income Tax Act governed entities. From Companies Income Tax Act, they then went on to have things like Petroleum Profits Tax, which is specific to the petroleum sector, but predicated on the Companies Income Tax Act. Indeed, schools that are incorporated under guarantee or as limited liability companies, they are taxed under the Companies Income Tax Act. But schools that are set up as trustees or as enterprises or as partnerships, the tax burden for the schools ends up in the hands of the proprietors, not the school as an entity. But now we have all these acts becoming the Nigerian Tax Act. And that in itself has created two tax authorities. For federal taxes, we used to know, or we know as we speak, of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Federal Inland Revenue Service. This is being replaced by another entity called the Nigeria Revenue Service. The reason for the change in name is because all income accruing to the federal government will be collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service. So it will not be limited to companies' taxes, petroleum profits taxes. It will also expand to the income from government agencies like NIMASA, government agencies like NCAA, that's Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. NIMASA is Nigerian Maritime. I've forgotten the full name of that acronym, but the Maritime Authority, places like, I'm thinking about government agencies that generate revenue, that your customs and excise, all of those agencies' revenue will be collected by what is now christened the Nigerian Revenue Service. This is not strange because in the United States and the United Kingdom, all revenues are warehoused in one place. So in the UK, you have His Majesty's Customs and Excise. That warehouses all revenue arms of government. So Nigeria is just joining proven and tested methods by creating the Nigerian Revenue Service. But for individuals, except those who reside in Abuja, it is the state revenue service where they live that impacts their tax. So for those of us who live in Lagos, it's the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, LIRS, that administers taxation to us. For those of you in Ogun State, it is the equivalent in Ogun State, the Ogun State Internal Revenue Service. So all states have that. And the Federal Capital Territory, which is Abuja, incidentally, I'm speaking from there now, has what they call the Federal Capital Territory Internal Revenue Service. That's the FCT. Can you guys hear me? There's a lot of static. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, you are audible. Yes.
Okay, because there's a lot of static. Okay, all right. Okay, great. So we have in Abuja the FCT Internal Revenue Services for residents of Abuja. So I've tried to let you know the major tax of regulatory agencies in Nigeria from January 1, 2026 is the Nigerian Revenue Service, and at the state level, or what some people call the subnational level, it will be the State Internal Revenue Service, or for those in the Federal Capital Territory, it will be the Federal Capital Territory Internal Revenue Service, which is essentially a state tax service. Now, all individuals, every individual in Nigeria, whether he or she is in employment, in business, or in retirement, are taxed by the State Internal Revenue Service where they reside, or if resident in Abuja, the FCT IRS. So in other words, but there are a few exceptions. People in the armed forces, in the security agencies, and diplomats, they are taxed by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So if you come across a soldier, a policeman, a person in the state security services, even if he's resident in Lagos, his taxes are being done by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, which will transmit into the Nigerian Revenue Service. I think it makes sense because those guys are fairly mobile. A policeman can be serving in Lagos today. By the time you search for him next year, he might be in Gombe. By the time you search for him in another 3 years, he might be in Enugu. So as to avoid slipping through the cracks for their personal income taxes, in the wisdom of government, they said all security agencies, armed forces, diplomats of Nigeria will be taxed through the Federal Inland Revenue Service, which I said is transmuting to become the Nigerian Revenue Service. However, other individuals are accountable to the state revenue service where they reside as at January 1 of every year. So if I happen to reside in Abuja this January 1, 2026, and let us say that in May, my employer transfers me to Lagos, Ibadan, or I choose to go, my taxes for that year will still be rendered to Abuja and to be closed out there. So that in January 1, 2027, in the example I cited, that I had moved to Ibadan, my taxes will start being paid in 2027 to the Ibadan, whoever is the state tax authority in Oyo State. I hope you get the sense of what I'm saying, that January 1 of every year, the residency you have determines the tax authority that has the capacity to tax you. I'm talking about individuals. So an educator, being an illustrious individual, should know that the tax authority that has responsibility for levying taxes on that person is the state tax authority that he or she is resident in January 1 of any year. That's the rule in Nigeria, that your residence, except is an hotel or a rest house, wherever is your permanent abode, except an hotel or a rest house, your permanent abode makes all the decision as to who or which tax authority administers your taxes. So January 1 every year is it. So for the new year that is coming up, if you happen to be resident in Ekpe, and Ekpe, as far as I can tell, is Lagos State, it means your tax responsibility is to the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. I'm assuming that at the end of this, questions will be asked if anybody has any questions. Now, for educators, I tried to find out what are your relevant income streams. I did my best, but I can't be certain that I am right, that your revenue streams are salaries, online tutoring fees, investment income, rent, dividends, share of profit on disposal of an asset, and then trading income. I'm told that a few of you are also traders. So for educators, we are following income streams, but not limited to salaries, online tutoring fees, which can be international in nature, because I am guessing that because you guys are experts, you can actually be tutoring guys, children or adults, indeed adults who live outside the shores of Nigeria, and then you get paid in Forex. So that's why I'm saying your online tutoring fees are also taxable in Nigeria, but I'll come to that in a bit. Right? Under the new tax laws, it's important we make this note. All income earned globally are now subject to Nigerian tax. I reiterate, all income earned globally are now subject to Nigerian tax. There can be rules that exempt certain incomes, but the argument we used to converse before, that Mr. A earns money in Ghana and has not brought it into Nigeria, therefore it should not be taxed, that no longer subsists. All income that anybody resident in Nigeria are now subject to Nigerian tax. It goes on to say the income, gains, or profits of an individual, and I'll explain those going forward, of an individual who is resident in Nigeria are deemed to accrue in Nigeria and are chargeable to tax in Nigeria wherever they arise, and whether or not the income, profits, or gains have been brought into or received in Nigeria. The reason why this change is very important is that up to December 31st, 2025, if you earned money in America and you did not bring it into Nigeria, strictly speaking, the Nigerian tax authorities could not tax you. And many of us Nigerians were very wise to that. So they earned money. So assuming I was an educator and I was providing tutoring services to a Nigerian child who seeks to sit JAMB or who seeks to sit for common entrance. So the parents abroad require education the Nigerian syllabus or Nigerian content way. So I could be sitting down in Oshobo and training a child in the States or in the UK or indeed anywhere. And I then tell the parents, oh, thank you very much. Please put the money in my bank account in America, if you have a bank account. Or you say, keep the money for me. When I find somebody coming, when I need anything in America, I will ask you to pay because maybe you need to buy an encyclopedia, a laptop, or whatever you want to buy, you will then pay for it there. So, strictly speaking, you haven't brought that income into Nigeria. And as per 31st December 2025, that was exempt from our income. Now, under the new law, I will read it again, all income earned globally is now subject to Nigerian tax. The income, gains, or profits of an individual who is resident in Nigeria, and remember I told you residency is January 1 of the year, are deemed to accrue in Nigeria, are chargeable to tax in Nigeria wherever they arrive, and whether or not, please note this, the income, profits, or gains have been brought into or received in Nigeria. Because I told you up to December 31st this year, if you earned money abroad, even in Benin next door, or Niger, or Chad, or Cameroon, those are our neighboring countries. If you earned money in those places and didn't bring it into Nigeria, or didn't have it brought for you into Nigeria, nobody in Nigeria could, under the law, seek to tax you. I hope you understand that. But under the new dispensation, wherever you earn income, it's now liable to Nigerian tax. Let me now describe to you what income, profits, or gains are, so that as educators, you will understand the width and breadth of the new law. Any profit that you make from a trade, a business, a profession, or a vocation is chargeable to tax. Any royalties you earn, or fees, or rent that you get are chargeable to tax. Dividends or premiums that you earn are chargeable to tax. Fees, dues, allowances are chargeable to tax. Income, profit, or gain from disposal or lending of securities. Securities are, I'm sure you know, are shares and things like that. Anything that relates to those are chargeable to taxes also. And then profits or gains from disposal of property or fixed assets are also chargeable to tax. Remember, I told you a minute ago that all income, gains, or profits of an individual who is resident in Nigeria are deemed to accrue here. So they've gone ahead to describe what this is. And then for those of you who are not lawyers, they then have the last one saying that any income or gain or profit not described in the preceding paragraphs is also chargeable. In other words, maybe you will create an income that doesn't relate to any of the things I have read out to you. They are anticipating your wisdom, and they are saying whatever you then define it as becomes chargeable to tax. I hope you know, because when you go to court and then somebody has defined A to Z, and then you now say, oh, mine is AI or B2, not B, not A. They have anticipated your wisdom and said, if you gain from it, if you make profit from it, if you make an income from it, it is chargeable to tax. That distinction is very important to know and to remember. Now, this is also a new one. Profits or gains from transactions in digital or virtual assets. They are now also gain. You know, a lot of Nigerians claim that our law did not recognize digital income. You know, some people earn money from digital businesses. Virtual meeting. So I'll talk to you in 10 minutes. Yeah. All Nigerians do transactions in digital. I know Bitcoin and all these digital assets that Nigerians now trade in. Before, they were not chargeable to Nigerian tax. Now they are. For those of you educators who are in employment, income from employment, such as salary, wages, fees, allowances, anything arising from duties of employment, from which it is intended that the employee will make a gain, is chargeable to tax. Any pension, annuity, or any other similar income is chargeable to tax. And like I said, this is the all-embracing sentence. Any other income, profit or gain not mentioned earlier is subject to tax. I don't know if you caught that. You know, what the law tried to do was to define every known means of profit or income. They now said any other income or profit or gain not mentioned above is subject to tax. Now, I've tried to explain to you that the place of residence for you is mission critical in terms of your taxes, because it's where you live that you get taxed. So in theory, if you lived on a ship that's just outside Nigerian territorial waters, in theory, you don't pay tax in Nigeria. I don't know which country you will pay tax in if you live in a ship that is just outside the nautical boundaries of Nigeria. They are not subject to tax. But once you cross into the Nigerian territory, land, sea, or air, wherever state you fall into under that, you fall into the tax net of that state. And I'm sure you're going to say to me, how can anybody offshore say that you are living in a state? You remember during Obasanjo's presidency, there was a lawsuit in which the states that are littoral states, states that abut water, were able to win that because the law of the sea says that 200 kilometers nautical miles out of the shore of any country belongs to that country. The states that abut water, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Bayelsa, and I think Lagos, made the argument that if Nigeria possesses that, it is the states that abut that possesses that water, and therefore anybody resident there will pay tax. So I'm just telling you as educators that they've anticipated how brilliant you are in ensuring that taxes will be paid wherever you live, in the air or in the water or on land. Individuals, I think it's important we know as educators that we can only be assessed tax on our earned income or on earned income. And I'll try and explain that. So that when you are planning, any income that you earn, know that it is taxable. Any income that you don't physically earn is also taxable. And I'll explain the two. Earned income would be profits or income or gains you derive from your trade or your business. Income from employment, such as salaries, wages, and the like. These are what we call earned income. To make it simple, anything you hustle to get, i.e., physical teaching, tutoring, anything you do, a trade that you are expending energy upon, they are called earned income. However, many of you make money in what is called unearned income. If you build a house and a tenant is paying you rent, it is what we call unearned income. When I say unearned, it's not that you didn't earn it, you didn't physically expend energy to earn it. So when you have dividends, annuities, rent, royalties, these are unearned income. Now the distinction is that all earned income is taxed on what you might call a pay-as-you-go basis. But unearned income is taxed on preceding year basis. Let me explain that. If I am on a salary, right, I pay monthly my taxes. If I'm a businessman, I pay next year my taxes for this year. I don't know if you get the distinction. Those of you who are in employment, your employer will more likely than not take from your income a certain amount of money every month and pay it over as tax. If you're a business person, trading or whatever, you're going to have an assessment of your income in the year after the current year and pay your tax then at once, not monthly. So to give an example, if a person is a property owner and all they have as income is the rent they collect from their property, at the end of the year, which in Nigeria is December 31st, they will make an account of all that they've earned from their property and make an account of all the expenses they've incurred on the property and then say, this is my profit from it, and then they'll be taxed. Using the example of 2025, they'll then be taxed in 2026. I hope that is clear. If you don't understand, when it's time for questions, you can ask and I'll explain. So from the foregoing, we can tell that all income is taxed. When an individual is in employment, I reiterate, the employer acts as agent for the relevant tax authority. And I hope you remember that that tax authority is the state tax authority where you were resident on January 1 of the year in question. And then your employer's job is to work out your tax and then compute it for you. So in a nutshell, I want to reiterate that when an individual is self-employed, that is, the individual is an online tutor, education consultant, a trader in education materials. I'm trying to think about the trading that an educator might be into that relates to education proper. Those taxes are done on preceding year basis, i.e. 2025 gains, profits, and income are paid in 2026. Now, the other issues were understanding your income streams. I think I have tried to explain what the income streams of an educator are. Managing your local and foreign earnings wisely. It is evident now that whether you earn your money in Nigeria or abroad, or a combination of both, you are going to pay taxes. It therefore means that you must record your income very well. So assuming $10,000 was your income from tutoring online and it came into your bank account, remember that you have a name and you have a BVN. For you to operate, my name is Adetunji, for example. Let's assume I created a bank account called Tunjad Enterprises with a view to hoping that they would not know who Tunjad Enterprises is, that is collecting $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 from abroad. Remember, that bank account has to be operated using a BVN or using a NIN. Both of those BVN and NIN come back to you. And that means you are obliged to pay taxes on it. And if you don't, you now be seen to be attempting to evade tax. Evade tax means that you are not disclosing all your income in order for the tax authority to assess you of tax. So it's not impossible that you might be thinking that you could earn money and have a bank account or an insurance certificate, insurance. Some people do investments in insurance whereby you put money aside and then in 10 years' time, they give you the money plus interest. Insurance companies have such schemes. You may do it in the name of Mawamiwale Enterprises. All insurance contracts, everything to do with money now must be accompanied by the name of the person, which means that should government seek to verify, they can find out who owns what, who is earning what, and whose bank account that has money coming into it is, the person concerned. Remember I said it is income that is taxed, not what you have. So if you have 3 million in your bank account as we speak today, nobody can tax you on 3 million naira. It is the income that arises to you that will be taxed. I hope that distinction is clear. So it means that keeping your records carefully, right, and having the right financial habits will now determine your tax liability. Let me explain. I'm sure when you go through detailed tax in the afternoon, you will be told about certain monies that you can have spent that will exempted from tax. I'll give you an example. You can have 10, 15, 20 life insurance policies. That's the only insurance contract on the same individual that will not be cancelled because there's a multiplicity. I'm sure you know that if you insure your car with more than one insurance company, only one will be deemed to be valid, or all the other ones may even say you've committed a crime, therefore they're not honoring the contract. But life insurance is something that you can do 40 times for yourself in the same year, different premiums and all that. So assuming you paid premium for your life insurance and you had 30 policies, which is probably an exaggeration, but let's assume you had 30 policies. The premium that you paid on each one is exempt from your income tax calculations. Those are what I call financial habits. So that all that premium, even though you spent it, it serves to reduce your tax liability. So if your tax liability, if your total income was maybe 10 million naira, and they were going to calculate tax on 10 million naira, if to say that your premiums that you paid on your life insurance totaled 5 million naira, they will remove 5 million naira from the total income I said you had and base your income, your tax on the residue. That's on the difference between your total income and the premiums you paid. I'm talking about financial habits. So when you have habits that are in alignment with government policy, you can reduce your tax. Another interesting one that people don't know is that if you earn money from abroad and you bring it in officially, i.e., Western Union or any of these money transfer agencies, and you pay it into your DOM account, that total income is exempt from income tax. People don't know that, but those are financial habits that reduce your tax burden. Remember, I said it's your entire income that is taxed. So let us assume that you're an online tutor in Nigeria and from abroad, and you bring all your earnings from abroad through official channels, which means that when you want to go into Naira, you are getting the Naira at official rate. You are exempt from tax on that total sum. Many people bring money in through friends, relatives. They bring the dollar in cash. It enters their hand. They go to a malam and they sell the money. Nobody is any wiser. The dollar has come, but you have changed it to naira. If they can track that you are earning money like that, and you are not bringing it through official channels, there's no exemption. You will pay tax on that income.
How are you?
Then so it's important that you keep your records carefully, because when you are going to challenge the taxman, there's a Latin phrase that says res ipsa loquitur, the facts speak for themselves. The facts must speak for whatever you're doing. You cannot tell the taxman, I think I earned 10 million, and not what you said of 20 million. You must have the facts. You must be able to show that you earned only 10 million. So your record keeping must be precise. So let us pretend I was an educator in Atlantic Hall. So I earned as my salary from there 10 million naira. Let us pretend that I'm an enterprising person. So after I close from school, I do home coaching for students and I earn another 3 million from there. Let us pretend I am further enterprising I also trade in shares and I buy shares or I trade in plastics or whatever, and I make another 5 million from there. You know, in the example I've cited, we have 10, 3, and 5. If my math is correct, that is 18 million. You are supposed to be taxed on 18 million income. Supposing the tax man said from your plastic business, you made 20 million and is going to give you a best of judgment assessment. It is you against the taxman. Your records must be clear as to what you bought, from where you bought it, who you sold to, and how much you made from it, and the deduction from your cost of buying to your cost of selling, which leads to income. Because remember, I said it's only income that can be taxed. So if you don't have good record keeping, how on earth will you be able to dissuade the taxman from taxing you higher than what you actually have? So financial mistakes that you should stop making is one, assuming that you cannot be seen. I've tried to explain that the advent of digitalization, i.e. BVN and NIN, has made it almost impossible for anybody not to be seen if they want to see you. So I am assuming that before you become a teacher or a home educator, either the employer or the parent will want to ascertain who you are, and they might ask for your BVN or your name just to prove that you are Mr. So and so. You are not wanted for crime A or crime B, so they may give it to a private investigator. This is the name of the man who's going to be teaching my children. Please check. And then the investigator, you know, you can go to National Identity Management Commission, pay a fee, and have the profile of the person that has that name read to you. Once you know the name, the correct name and all that, you can also go to the police, to CID or PANTI, to find out if that person is wanted for a crime or whatever. If individuals can do that to ascertain the identity of their domestic help, of teachers, or anybody interfacing with them, or anybody that is in employment, think about the taxman. Does he not have the same brains? Can he not ascertain who a person is? So I want you not to make that mistake that you cannot be seen, that you can buy shares, you can do insurance policy, you can acquire a house, you can do A, you can do B. Almost inevitably in Nigeria as we speak, anything that you do requires a BVN or requires a NIN. Once you have any of those two, like they used to say when I was young in a reggae song, you can run, but you cannot hide. So I would advise that don't panic about the new tax rules. They are in writing, they are everywhere. There are people who understand tax, who can advise you, and who can remove all the lies that people are peddling around that government to go to your bank account and take your tax out, or that if you have money there, they will take the money. Tax is made up of law and rules, and they must be applied to. Remember the picture of the judge in the court that blindfolds the eye and holds a scale. That is the way tax is. They do things by a scale appropriately and without let or favoritism. And they're also blind to the personality involved. They try and do things correctly. So I hope you've enjoyed the little time you've spent with me. I've tried to adhere to the 45 minutes, and this brings me to the end. I'm willing to take any questions. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is really amazing. I mean, it's a whole lot. I'm sure we'll be going back to the recorded video. Thank God we recorded to really take this in. Now we'll be taking questions. I wrote on the chat that you should please start sending in your questions so that we can just pick it from them. Please kindly turn off your microphone if you're not speaking. And if you prefer to ask your question instead of typing, just use the emoji.
It's okay. This noise is too much. Emma,
please just kindly allow me to mute this person. I don't know how we are muting. We want to talk to someone else. We'll mute ourselves. Maybe something is wrong somewhere. Please, let's take note. It is not ideal. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Thank you for the questions. For the beautiful insight. I have a couple of questions while I await others to, write their questions in the chat. So one of the questions I have here is saying that for a teacher who has never formally organized their finances, now we know that it's important. So what are the first 3 money habits you would advise us to build before 2026? Hello, sir.
Do you want me to answer that now, or you want to list all the questions?
Okay, so I think.
Okay, let me answer as you ask.
Okay, sir.
The habits I'll expect the person to have essentially are record all your transactions. Record them somewhere in an exercise book. Let us assume you have multiple streams of income. List it, note them, because that information is what you're going to use to fight the tax man. There are laws that protect you from paying tax. Maybe when you get money, go and buy treasury bills, invest in state development levy. All the income you get from them are free of tax. So now we are going to need tax professionals to provide professional counsel. And as you're educators and you charge fees, tax professionals also charge fees. So you will have to now record all your transactions, let a tax professional assist you to file appropriately. This should not apply, of course, to people who are in employment, because when you're in employment, there's more or less not much you can do. It is your salary that is being taxed. But for people who have multiple income streams, it's very important that you record all the transactions. You know what you can do to prevent the incidence of tax. Remember, I said tax avoidance. You can do things that avoid tax. And those will be the habits I'll suggest you to record your transactions, talk to a tax practitioner, let them advise you on how to spend the money that you have to make sure that you have exemptions from tax. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Again, still on this record keeping, because like you said, that's germane. It's really important in all of these things, and that's why we're having this morning session. We have a lot of teachers that get easily overwhelmed by record keeping, and that's the fact. Even though we are professionals, sometimes some of us feel that some of these things are left for the account teachers or the mathematicians, So I'm just facing my English. It's English that I'm teaching, and I don't. So what simple or practical system would you recommend for educators to track income? Because of course we have other sources of income, not just salaries. So what, again, simple practical system would you recommend for educators to track income and expenses without stress? Because we are now trying to start building that habit.
Let me tell you, very simple. It's very stupid, but it's simple. Buy an exercise book. Keep a diary in that exercise book of all the income that you have. Date, source, what you did to get that money. Keep that exercise book. That's all. Then let the tax man help you tomorrow after it's time to file your taxes to prepare a simple set of accounts for you that will enable you get away with your money earned without paying excessive tax. But buy an exercise book. So assuming I today provided a lecture for you guys, let us pretend, even though you are not doing it, let us pretend you paid me 100,000 naira for the class. I'm just saying. Today is December what? I forget the date. Whatever today's date is, 17. December 18 earned 100,000 from educators, care of Shola Shorigbe, and you bracket it. Do that every day. You'll be amazed that when you are disciplined, by the end of the year, you would know that you earned maybe 75 million naira. You would know. So when it's time to file tax, you're not filing tax for 40 million. And because educators that like today have now paid me, deducted withholding tax, and reported it to Lagos State where I live, that they paid me 100,000. Oh, withholding tax was 10%. This is the one. This is the 10,000 that they have paid Lagos State as withholding tax on my income. You know, when I file my tax, because Lagos State has a very robust database, they would have noted that somebody paid me 100K and they have a 10,000 credit note for me. When I file my returns and I don't disclose that 100K, what's going to happen? It means I am evading tax. And maybe I'm not evading, I just have forgotten. So they will now slam me with penalty for not disclosure. And then they will now tell me that they assume that 100,000 is the tip of the iceberg. I probably have earned 5 million from various engagements like that. I am now hustling to say I didn't earn 5 million. Oh, prove it. Do you understand? Prove that you didn't earn 5 million, because the onus is on the taxpayer to disprove the taxman, not the taxman to prove. You know, in law, if you appear very flamboyant, you wear nice clothes, you dress well, you drive a nice car, you live in a good part of town, you know, the taxman can do what they call best of judgment. You are good for 20 million naira tax. It is you that has to have records to prove that your income is only 3 million naira. Do you understand? The key thing for me is record keeping. Write down all income. Write down all expenses. It seems stupid, but when you give that to a taxman or an accountant to help you put in a simple profit and loss income statement sort of thing to file your taxes, you will find out that even though you made money, maybe for me to lecture you today, I had to buy a textbook. I had to rent a hall somewhere. I had to pay internet in order for me to be able to provide lecture. Those are legitimate expenses that are allowed in my being an online facilitator or online tutor, so that the income that you've paid me can now be offset with expenses that I genuinely incurred in order to make that income. Are you with me? So the first rule is record keeping. Second rule, record keeping. Third rule, record keeping. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We have some questions here. I said, please, what if you get a money gift for yourself or children? Maybe somebody dash you money now. Are you going to pay tax on that too?
I don't think the person was listening. I said all income is taxable. Of course, some would slip through the cracks, but in theory, everything you receive is taxable. There are certain rules that exempt certain gifts. Let's say it's a gift that is not cash, but if it's ending up, there's something we call benefit in kind. Let us assume I'm the principal of a school, and the school gifts me. I'm looking for something the school can gift me. The school gifts me. What kind of gifts do educators get? I don't know. If you want, it has a value, it can be called a benefit in kind, and it will be taxed at 5%. So nothing, strictly speaking, is non-taxable. Let's keep it simple. Nothing is non-taxable, as long as it ends in your hands. And the tax law does not exempt it. It's taxable.
Okay, sir. Sorry, I need to mute that person. Okay, so what about teachers who run a foundation and have received grants, and are those grants subject to tax?
Good question. You see, the foundation that people have, there are two dimensions to it. The fact that one, money is received from people, people expect that money they've given to that foundation is tax exempt. Yes and no. If the foundation has not gone to FIRS and gotten what they call a Section 5 listing, which allows donors to give you money and that money is exempt from tax from their end, that money they're given will be taxed by them. For the owner of the foundation, if the foundation is doing what it was legitimately asked to do, and it was not making income from other sources, it will be taxed on those other incomes. Let us say, for example, you set up a foundation to educate physically challenged children. Remember that the teacher is different from the foundation. It is the foundation that is exempt from tax, not the teacher. Let's make that distinction. The foundation is different from the teacher or from the educator. Now, if the teacher now generates money from the foundation and earns it themselves, that is the teacher, that is taxable in the hands of the teacher. If the foundation that was set up for education of disadvantaged children now has a printing press that prints books or pamphlets and earns income on those things, those incomes will be taxed because they are not for income arising from the purpose for which the foundation was set up. Number two, the distinction between a foundation and other entities is that every surplus, which we call profit, that the foundation makes every year is plowed back into the foundation. If it is not, the foundation itself may be subject to tax. What I mean by plowed back, you know, a business can make a profit of 1 million naira, right? And that 1 million naira will be shared amongst shareholders and it will be taxed. A foundation too can make a profit of 1 million naira, but they call it a surplus. That 1 million naira must be put back into the foundation for the foundation to avoid tax. Did you get the distinction? Because the foundation is set up to help. It's a not-for-profit, so it cannot distribute its profits. It must put the profits back, but the profits are called surplus. I hope I was able to answer that question without making it too difficult.
Thank you, sir. So this morning is just to, you know, it's even good that we have this morning session. It's opening our eyes, you know, educating us, and we are good. Yeah.
Sorry?
So I said we are good. We are good. Thank you very much for that, for the answer. There's another question. We have two more, then we can call it a day. Also, am I to pay tax on the whole income or after expenses are deducted?
You pay, okay, it depends on what you call income. If income is salary of the educator, you pay tax on that. If income is what an educator has gained from a trade or a business, then it is after expenses are deducted. You get what I mean?
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. The last question is, please, can we know about tax ID, which has been said we must get before using our bank account in 2026?
That is not true. That is a rumor. Tax ID can be obtained from any tax office. Let us assume I'm speaking to you, Madam Shola, in Ekpe. There's a Lagos State tax office in Ekpe, if I'm correct. You can approach them for your tax ID. However, it is wrong that they say without a tax ID, you cannot open an account. You cannot operate the account without a tax ID, but you can open the account. And all you have to do is to go to the Lagos State tax office nearest to you. I am Shola, I am Adetunji, I am Josiah, I am Hezekiah, I am Yakini. They'll give you a tax ID with which you will now be able to operate your account. But it's not a Herculean task. I even hear, I don't know how far it's true, that our name is going to become our tax ID. I don't know how far it's true. So everybody's tax ID will switch to their name for individuals. So, you know, for people who are already paying tax, you already have a tax ID. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, the tax ID is the TIN, right?
Yes, yes, you already have one. If you are paying in Lagos, it's N/something for those of us in Lagos. If you look at your tax clearance, it's written there, or your tax card is written there.
Okay. Please, after this question, I think we'll call it a day. Yes, I am asking because I went to make inquiry at a bank and was told FIRS will give the tax ID, but it is not free.
It is free. It is free. And it's not FIRS, it's Joint Tax Board for individuals because they want to make it uniform. You know, I said to you, those of us in Lagos already have tax IDs, but that's peculiar to Lagos. My understanding is that they want to make tax IDs national. Because, you know, if you have a company, your company has a tax ID issued by FIRS, which you use for all your transactions. So for individuals, we have one in Lagos State, which is probably not tenable in Osun. So I hear they want to make it countrywide and to be administered by the Joint Tax Board for individuals, though. And I'm being told that it's likely to be our name because, you know, your name is unique to you. Nobody has your name. Sorry, nobody else has your name. So that's what I'm told. But getting a tax ID is easy. Go into any tax office of the state where you live as an individual, you will get your tax ID. All right. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed my session with me. I wish you all well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you very much. All right, teachers, let's not forget this evening. I mean, before I go to get to that, can we use a different emoji to say thank you to Mr. Adeyemi Adetunji for granting us this his time? I mean, he's really busy, I know, and he still created time to have this conversation with us. He watered the ground, you know, took his time to explain, even giving scenarios. You can see. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate. We really appreciate.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you all. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, sir. So please, let's not forget again in the evening, we'll be having another session that will be taking us really, really deep into the tax reform by 5 p.m. We'll be meeting with a senior officer of the FIRS. So you should come with your questions, come ready. And we have a lot of information to pass even in the evening. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you. Do have a great day. Bye.